Welcome back, everybody, to the Good Shepherd episode 27. Now, the big news in sports this week, Steve Nash? Yeah, I said that correctly. Steve Nash is hired as the Brooklyn Nets' new head coach. Now, this is a guy without any high school, collegiate, or NBA experience, so it surprised a lot of people. What also is not surprising is the term white privilege is being thrown out there. Again, to repeat, Steve Nash has not had any high school, collegiate, or NBA coaching experience, whether it's a coordinator, not that Nash would be a coordinator position, but you get the point. He is a first-time coach, and that first position for Nash is going to be as a head coach in the NBA. So he did bypass a lot of people, and I get that. But this is not white privilege. This is about an all-time great player getting an opportunity to be a head coach. We saw that with Larry Bird, but we also saw it with different races. Isaiah Thomas, Mark Jackson, Derek Fisher. It's not just white individuals that bypass other people to get head coaching jobs that have not had coaching experience. I can't be clear enough about that. Derek Fisher literally walked off the court, and a couple months later, he was an NBA head coach for the New York Knicks. Nash at least has a 5-year gap. He has been a consultant for an NBA team, so he has more experience than Derek Fisher. He is also an all-time great player, a top 40 player, a 2-time MVP, a guy that started off his career as a bench warmer and was the ultimate overachiever, the ultimate teammate. There's not a bad word uttered about him from an NBA teammate or coach of Nash's. He helped revolutionize the game of 7 seconds or less. But more important and more paramount than any of that is the relationship that he has with Kevin Durant. That ultimately is what made this hire happen. This is such a player-driven league. And Durant, despite injury of the Achilles tendon, will be the Nets' best player next season, and he still will be a top 5 player in the NBA. And Nash has a very strong relationship and a healthy relationship with Kevin Durant. Nash, obviously, first being a franchise player, can relate to Kevin Durant. Nash would work out with Durant during the tail end of his career. He was a consultant, like I mentioned, for the Golden State Warriors before KD got there. So it's no accident that Durant ended up in Golden State. I don't know how significant of a role that played, but it certainly played a role. So if you connect the dots, and also a guy like Kyrie Irving, who appreciates and respects guys that have played at that top premium level, will ultimately be very willing, open, and susceptible to listen to what Nash has to offer. This is a great hire, and it's the right hire for this particular franchise. Now, one last point I want to make, and I want to be very clear about this. It's not white privilege based, and I do not blame the Nets for making this hire, but it doesn't make it fair. Ime Udoka, Sam Cassell, James Posey are 3 names that come to mind that have been assistants for decades in the NBA. All proven NBA players. In the case of Posey and Cassell, multiple-time champions. In the case of Cassell, I wouldn't say an all-time great point guard, but an all-star caliber point guard. Everywhere he went, whether it was the Bucks, the Clippers, the T-Wolves, obviously the Rockets, even the Celtics, they won. He plays such an integral role in the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise, getting further than they ever have before. Garnett was there for years and years and could not get past the first round until Sam Cassell got there. Cassell understands what it's like to be a part of winning basketball. He then hangs him up 2008. He has been an assistant under Doc Rivers, one of the all-time top 10 coaches, and he can't get an opportunity? Ime Udoka has been around this game under Popovich for 7 years as an assistant coach. 7 years under a top 3 NBA coach of all time, and he can't get a look to be an NBA head coach. James Posey, a 2-time NBA champion, an absolute defensive stalwart, and he can't get an opportunity to be an NBA head coach. The NBA is prioritizing winning. It's very clear, but it's not based on white privilege, but it doesn't make it fair. It doesn't make it fair that guys are being overlooked. Becky Hammon has paid dues. 6 years as an assistant under Greg Popovich. Why hasn't she gotten a look to be an NBA head coach? See, the ambulance is upset right now because they feel like they have a head coach that they want and they're not getting their fair shake. It is not fair. That's what it comes down to. But it's not based on white privilege, and it's not based on lack of diversity, in my opinion, because you do see guys like Mark Jackson and Derek Fisher and Isaiah Thomas, people that are not white, getting those opportunities as well. Now, I'm not saying that everything is completely fair in terms of diversity in the NBA. We know it's not. But this is not based on white privilege. And the Nets got it right. But it doesn't make it fair either. And the NBA has to look deeply, in my opinion, into why the likes of a Cassell or a Posey or Ime for the San Antonio Spurs or a Becky Hammon are not getting looks at becoming head coaches. Guys like Dan Marley, by the way, former All-Stars who were white, they also were not getting looks at being NBA head coaches. So it works both ways. But I do agree that the NBA needs to look at why certain assistant NBA coaches are not getting hired as head coaches. But I do not fault Kevin Durant, I do not fault Kyrie Irving, and I do not fault the Brooklyn Nets organization for wanting the best candidate in Steve Nash. And if you think because he's a first-time head coach that he won't have the success that expectations are going to be thrust upon him to have, look at Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr got to the Warriors, 5 straight NBA finals, should have been 4 NBA titles in my opinion, had there not been a very flagrant decision by Draymond Green. The Nets are going to thrive under Steve Nash, but it doesn't make it fair. But it also doesn't make it about white privilege. In episode 28, I'm going to discuss with you why this particular weekend is the biggest weekend of Giannis Antetokounmpo's NBA career. And while even at 25, this will shift the perception of the legacy of the 2-time NBA MVP. You don't want to miss that. And if you like this content, if you like the backdrop, speaking of KD, I got Kevin Durant up here. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe. I want to continue to chug out these videos because I really enjoy making them for you. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope everyone continues to be safe and healthy. And thank you very much for watching. And make sure you subscribe. Have a great weekend, everybody.